With automakers releasing all these new hot hatches like the all-new Toyota GR Corolla, the venomous Civic Type R, which is an absolute track demon of a car, of course Acura has joined the mix to add a bit of a suit and tie to the Civic Type R. Today, let's find out if the suit and tie justifies the over $7,000 price premium over its platform mate, the Civic Type R. This Type S in particular is a 2024 Integra Type S in a delicacy of a color, and actually one of the only options that you could choose on your Type S, Apex Blue Pearl. Personally, if I was to get one of these, it would absolutely be in Performance Red Pearl. Really one of my favorite colors from Acura. It looks good on everything, even the normal looking Integra. But the only color that you actually get for free is silver. Every other color, which thankfully Acura does offer pretty cool colors for the Type S, every other color is a $600 option. That would bring the MSRP of this flaming blueberry to just over $52,000, which is a $7,000 price premium over its brethren platform, the Honda Civic Type R. Just like the Civic Type R, the Integra Type S is only available in one trim configuration, just as you see it here, with pretty much everything standard except the carbon fiber rear spoiler for $950. Also, just like the Civic Type R, the Integra Type S is only available in one powertrain, with the fiery turbocharged 2-liter under the hood and a 6-speed manual transmission. But it does get a little bit more power than the Civic Type R, but you'll find out how much more. So this, everyone, is the powerful K20 C1. The first thing that I notice is, for the price point, I wish this had hood struts, because on hot days like today you can really burn your hands. This engine is similar to the motor that's found in the 2-liter turbo Honda Accord, the 10th gen, but the engine in the Civic Type R and also the Integra Type S has been beefed up. Also, the Accord uses a smaller, lower inertia turbo to give you a little bit better low-end torque for better daily driving, while this one loves to scream at the top end. In this application, it makes 320 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque, slightly higher numbers than the Civic Type R, because this one actually has a better free-flowing active exhaust, which take an ear gander. Just like the Type R, this engine only sends power to the front wheels and a helical limited slip front diff, which was unexpected because a lot of us speculated that this would have super handling all-wheel drive. But in my almost week of driving this, I can already say you don't really need all-wheel drive in this unless if you're really pushing it in the rain. That whole combination gets this just under 3,300 pound projectile to 60 miles an hour in 5.1 seconds, which, yeah, it is a little bit slower than its competition, but all of those are less fun and engaging to drive, so this one is much more worth it. Also, in terms of MPGs, I've really not cared, but you should expect 21 in the city, 28 on the highway, and a combined rating of 24. I've been averaging about 17, but that's only because I've been driving it like how it wants to be driven. Acura offers the Integra Type S with two factory wheel options. The first of the two are my preferred wheels, these gray 19s. I'm glad that they stuck with 19s instead of 20s because they help with the ride and it still handles like it's on rails. For a few grand, you can also choose a copper finished 19-inch wheel, which also looks nice nice, and I would imagine it would look nice with the blue and maybe even the red, but it's just not my cup of tea. You can also see the Integra Type S gets 4-piston Brembo brake calipers on the front. The rotors themselves are bigger as well. You can also see how much lower and wider the Type S is with its fender flares. This car also desperately needs window tints, so if you buy one of these, you gotta tint it because it would look so much better. The contrast with the wheels, the black window trim, the color, it would really be hot. However, Acura does make it easy to get into the trunk of your Integra Type S. There's a nice button on the trunk lid itself, which reveals just under 25 cubic feet of volume. It's a reasonable amount of space, but I just wish that the rear liftover height wasn't as high. Thankfully, the rear seat is still a 60-40 split, giving you just under 47 cubic feet of volume with the second row folded flat. So it's a reasonably practical vehicle, especially for the performance that you get. I also appreciate that there's LEDs throughout the whole interior of the car, and also underneath there's of course not a spare tire, but you do get a funnel and a pump with a can of Fix-A-Flat. Now, even though this is a driver's car, it still has a pretty accommodating rear seat because the Integra Type S is based on the solidly built 11th gen Civic. First of all, you could hear the door closes with a nice solid thunk. If we look at the rear door panel, it is hard touch plastic on the top, and everything black is hard touch plastic. The ivory inserts on the door card and the armrest are a little softer, and it feels like an actual leather. This does just remind you that you are in a more driver-oriented car, so this doesn't bother me that much. Something that I'm really impressed about is the rear legroom. I'm 5'9". The driver's seat is in my position. I have maybe 2-3 inches of legroom, and I can fit my feet under the seats. And headroom, headroom, because the roofline of this slopes a little bit. If I sit up, my hair does brush up against the ceiling. This is a 4-passenger car only because, just like the Type R, the Integra Type S has these 2 cup holders in the middle between the 2 outboard seats. There's also no armrest, and in addition to the lack of a lot of these creature comforts, there aren't even air vents in the rear seat for the passengers. I wish that I had air vents back here because I'm sweltering. Now we are one step away from driving this thing. First of all, we have to figure out how it works. The car does make a song for you as you get in, but this is the key fob for these newer Acuras, and this is the Type S specific key fob. I actually like it. It's smaller than the old, like, 2015 era Acura key fob, so that's better. But because it's push button start, you can leave the fob anywhere inside the car, put your foot on the brake and the clutch, and press the start button to go. So one of the first things you'll notice between this and the Civic Type R is how much nicer the interior is. Of course, it's not like a crazy big difference because this is still based on the Civic, so the general layout is the same. The dash, thankfully, is all soft touch. This one has a heads-up display, which I'm actually pretty impressed to see. The steering wheel is pretty similar. It's a 3-spoked leather-wrapped wheel with ivory stitching on the insides. It looks really nice, and there's a Type S badge on the very bottom of it. Let's listen to the horn. The Integra Type S has a good sounding horn, unlike the meep meep horn on the Civic. There are buttons on the wheel. Thankfully, Honda doesn't put too many buttons on the wheel like they used to. The left side, those buttons control the audio and volume controls and a little bit of the infotainment screen, mostly just selecting sources. And on the right side of the wheel, those buttons control all of the Honda sensing features, including the radar cruise control and the lane keep assist. There's also another scroll wheel that lets you adjust the gauges on the right side as well. As we look up at the gauges, it's a full digital display. The only things that aren't part of the screen are the coolant temperature and the fuel gauge, but those are totally fine. The screen itself is actually pretty decent resolution, and it does change a little bit depending on what drive mode you're in. And in terms of drive modes, there's a comfort mode, a sport mode, and a sport plus mode, which Acura says the sport plus mode is almost the equivalent of the plus R setting in the Type R. Thankfully, on this, the headlights are automatic and also the windshield wipers. Thankfully, the front door panels are nicer than the rears. On the top, this is some soft touch material, feels similar to the dash. More of that ivory trim down below, which is actually pretty soft for the armrest. Both the driver and passenger side windows are auto up and down, but not the rears. One thing that I also notice on the door is the lack of memory seats. I'm pretty sure the Integra A-Spec can get memory seats, but I'd be annoyed I pay this much money and there's still blanks in it, because the seat is power in this as well, but we'll talk about the seats in a bit. As we look at the center, this uses Honda and Acura's newest version of Honda and Acura Link. I really like how Honda and Acura have been doing their infotainment systems. It's one of the systems on the market that annoys me the least. It's because it's simple, and I like that. Honda doesn't bury everything in thousands of menus. They make it easy, it's responsive. This uses wireless and wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This also uses the ELS audio system that sounds really good, and I can actually say it is an improvement compared to the Civic Type R. Songs really have good, strong, clear bass in this car. I appreciate that Honda does add some hard touch buttons like a home button and a back button. There's also a physical volume knob and a tuning dial as well. There are a few digital shortcuts on the bottom of the screen as well, make it a little bit easier, but they do go away when you're in CarPlay. Down below, the Integra has dual zone automatic climate control, very simple, right out of the Civic. But that's really not a bad thing, because even in the Civic, all the dials feel really nice, so nothing to complain about. You can see the buttons for the heated seats, 3-stage heated seats for the driver and passenger. Underneath that, there's a USB Type A and a USB Type C port with a normal 12-volt power outlet. There's a little tray that holds a Qi wireless charger, so there's all kinds of connectivity inside of this car. Next to the shifter, you'll see the drive mode selector, and there's an individual mode which lets you customize the different aspects of the car, from the steering to the throttle response to the suspension. Looking at the shifter, this uses the 6-speed manual transmission. It is so precise. It is so buttery smooth. It goes into gears so nicely, and you really have a sense of confidence when you're shifting with this. I also like the shift knob of this more than the Civic Type R, because it has the leather on it, and the Type R's shift knob just gets too damn hot in the summer. Behind the shifter, there's 2 reasonably sized cup holders. It seems like you could fit most large sized drinks in here. I also appreciate that Acura doesn't throw piano black plastic everywhere in the interior. It's only just a little bit on the steering wheel and around the center console as well. The armrest in the center is actually pretty soft as well, with more of that stitching. And if you open it up, the center console is kind of small. It doesn't offer a crazy amount of space, but it is pretty accommodating. And also, the glove box is reasonably sized and damped as well. 2 things that I have to say about this car that I thought it would have for the price point. First thing is the sunroof. I understand that it's to make the car more rigid, but I don't know. If the Civic doesn't have the sunroof, I would go for the Integra that has the sunroof. So I don't know, but it is a performance car. Also, no power folding mirrors. This does have a blind spot monitor as standard, but I would expect power folding mirrors. When you put the car into reverse, you of course have a backup camera with 3 different views. There's a normal view, a wide view, and also a top-down view, and of course the car has rear cross traffic alert as well. Now we can talk about the seats. They're actually very comfortable. They feel more similar to the normal Integra than the Integra Type S. I feel like they could have made them a little bit more supportive, because they are on the flatter side. This car is definitely more of a one-size-fits-all type of seat, but they are comfortable and they offer a reasonable amount of support, and I like that they do offer a little bit of shoulder support as well. It's the ivory leather on the outside with black Alcantara in the middle. Feels very nice, and it has piping on it as well. But the driver's seat is actually a 12-way power driver's seat. No memory for the mirrors or anything like that. And also the steering column is manually tilting and telescoping. But the passenger seat is manual. I don't know how much of a deal breaker that is to some people, but it's a bit of an annoyance for me. But I'm pretty sure if we all went to Acura asking for all these extra features, this car would be well over 60 grand. So I guess it's a bit of a compromise. So In my time of daily driving the Integra Type S, I have quite enjoyed it. It has been a more pleasurable daily driver than the Civic Type R, even though the Civic Type R itself doesn't bother me at all. When it comes to daily driving, this one is just softer and feels much more plush, which is, I guess, where that 7 grand comes from. But today we're gonna find out if performance-wise, in Sport Plus mode, if it's worth the extra 7 grand. I don't have time to do a dig, but so this thing really does fly, and I'm taking people's advice from the Civic Type R video. Wow, it pops on downshifts. I'm taking a little bit more time between my shifts. This thing is fast, man. This thing is really fast. This thing is really fun. It's much louder than the Civic Type R, and that's mostly because of the exhaust. It's not crazy loud, but it's the perfect amount of volume, especially for being stock. So we will see the turning radius of the Integra. Because it's front-wheel drive, it's pretty decent. It's like I'm in Russia. So you can feel some violence in the steering wheel because it's a high power front wheel drive car. The adaptive dampers, like, yes, they do make the ride stiffer, but just because it makes the ride firmer doesn't mean that it's necessarily better. At least in Sport Plus mode, it's actually pretty harsh, as I would expect, and there is almost no body roll. Since I'm on this straight road, I do want to see what it does from a stop. I'm going to turn off traction control. Unlike the Civic Type R, you can't actually fully turn off traction control in the Integra. Fuck! Wow, and pop on downshifts too. It has impressive grip at high speeds, but it isn't as engaging as the Civic Type R. That was one of the first things I noticed when I got into this. When you're pushing it, the steering is kind of, I wouldn't say vague, but there's not as much communication between the front tires and my hands in this compared to the Civic Type R. Because this road is actually pretty uncomfortable, you can get into comfort mode and it does tame the ride quality. You can probably tell off the camera, even though I do, now that I have a heavier camera, I need to get a better suction cup mount. Maybe you can hear the sounds on the outside. I don't know, this car just doesn't thrill me and scare me. Not scare me, but I guess you know, you have to know what I mean. If you really like driving cars hard, you'll know what I mean. It doesn't give me that same rush or thrill as the Civic Type R. If you're really in the market for one of these cars, I would definitely recommend to test drive both of them to see which one you like more, because of course they both handle like they're on rails, they both look really cool, they sound really cool, they're fast, they're reliable. At least I have the expectation of them being reliable, but this car just really doesn't sing to me like that Civic. Okay, so you guys catch me mid-commute. I'm actually heading to a press rally, and the Integra Type S is going to be one of the stars of the show. But I did want to go over how this car is in a more day-to-day scenario, because right now I've been in stop and go traffic. I've been in various traffic conditions, and it's honestly not been that bad. The shifter is very easy, it's very light, so it doesn't offer that much mental capacity when it comes to shifting. Just like the clutch, it's very easy. It's very easy to find the bite point. It's kind of towards the top. And even though the Civic Type R is a little bit more raw than this car, it's still not that bad to live with. And this car just makes it a little bit easier because it's the Civic Type R, but everything is a little bit softened up to make it a little bit more comfortable. I've been in comfort mode pretty much all of this commute, because if I put myself into sport mode, yeah, it does get more fun and you can hear a little bit more, and everything gets more responsive. In fact, I don't really like this as much in Sport Plus or Sport mode. Unfortunately, I'm behind a bunch of slow cars on this on-ramp, but one of the most fun parts of any commute with this will be on-ramps, because it handles so flat. Even in comfort mode, there's not much body roll. I'll put myself into Sport Plus mode because we're gonna be getting onto the highway here. Let's do a little bit of a pull. Make sure the coast is clear. Gosh, this thing is fast. This thing is fast. It's fun how fast this is. The only thing that I can report is the crazy amount of road noise that you do get. So that would, this would annoy me because this is really loud. But I guess it's a drawback of these tires. Acura did say that they put a little bit more sound deadening into the Integra compared to the Civic. I don't know. This still is pretty loud. I figured if you're looking at the Integra Type S, you're probably looking at other compact, sporty sedans and hatchbacks in this segment, because it doesn't go against, to me, it doesn't go against stuff like the Civic Type R and the GR Corolla. Even though performance is similar, it's not, because this one, Acura is intending this to compete with the 2 Series, the CLA, like the AMG and the M variants of these. And if we're looking at that category of car, I would choose this over the competition because of that Honda reliability, and also because I think it's the least computer-like of all the computers. Because even compared to the Type R, this really does feel like a computer. Now that there's not as many people behind me, I don't know if you can hear the pops. I don't know, but yeah, the car does seem happier when I shift a little bit slower. This car does have an insane amount of mid-range to top-end power. I don't know if I notice it compared to the Type R, because apparently it's supposed to feel a little bit different, but it's already really potent as it is. And that, my friends, brings us to the bittersweet end of this video. It has really been an absolute blast to have the Integra Type S. It was also really cool to get the Civic Type R and then also compare them as well. Do I like it more than the Civic Type R? I don't think so. I know it has a lot of performance, but the Civic Type R is much cheaper. This one is much more daily drivable. The interior is much nicer, much more comfortable seats, but I really appreciate how raw and direct the Civic Type R feels. It's much more of a driver's car, but Acura did do a pretty damn good job. Let me know in the comments what you think, if you like the Civic Type R more or the Integra Type S, so we can banter in the comments. I read every comment, so just say hi even. But thank you all for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. I guess before I get blown away, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, peeps.